Is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Monday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I'm your host, Josh Harris. It's a nice little 10 a.m. on the East Coast, 11 a.m. in Cliffyland, but we're here a little bit early. We got some traveling to do for the holidays, so if you're tuning in at the normal 2 p.m. time, hello from 4 hours ago. I don't know. We got a nice 11-game slate here. This week is obviously there's Christmas, Hanukkah starting, whole bunch of split slates, I would say, this week. Honestly, I forget. I just looked at it and I forget what we're doing this week. But big slate tonight. 11 games. There's a couple morning games. Thank God the Rangers aren't on this slate. They lost to Carolina yesterday. They play in New Jersey today. We're not going to talk about it. It is the first day of Festivus, and it's the airing of grievances. And I have a lot of problems with you people, so you're going to hear about it, starting with the Boston Bruins. I want to air some grievances about them. What's going on, Cliffy? How you doing this lovely Monday morning?
Yeah, not doing too bad. It feels like Saturday because we used to do these shows at 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. on Saturdays or whatever. Doing all right. Yeah, we're doing the early show. I'm traveling to go visit family this afternoon for the holidays. So just be aware that, obviously I'll be in Discord like later once I actually get in. Josh probably pop in through the day. It's going to be some different news than what we have right now. Because as of right now, like Columbus literally just hit the ice for their morning skate. It's the first one of the day. We're going off. There's 6 teams on a back-to-back playing from yesterday or something like that. So could be a lot of news changes, lineup changes, injuries, especially coming off the break, or with the break coming up. Like if a team has a player that has a little bit of a nagging thing, maybe they give them a game off going into the break, give them 4 or 5 days off or something like that. So just be aware of that. But yeah, interesting slate here tonight. There's 3 pretty heavy favorites. There's going to be some chalk, but the other 8 games, at least by the Vegas odds right now, are all pretty close. So I think it makes the slate wide open. We don't have Colorado. We don't have Edmonton. We don't have Toronto. We do have Tampa Bay, but in a pretty bad spot. So without the big boys and without, really, if Tampa Bay was at home to Columbus, it'd be like, oh my God, what am I going to do? But we'll talk about that game, but they're going into Florida. It's not quite the same. So I think it makes the slate pretty wide open, and I think it makes for a nice little 11-gamer as we head into the holidays.
Yeah, and not only is Tampa going into Florida, their top line is 25,900. That's like, even if they were going into Columbus, that would still be a debate. Like, that's just a lot of salary to commit. But anyway, let's get into this slate. Thank you guys for hanging out with us on this Monday morning. Man, it does throw me back a little bit to those Saturday morning shows, specifically the one where I chugged like 3 energy drinks and started talking like Harry Carey for the reads. I haven't done that in a while. Let's not do that today. Trying to keep the crazy on the inside. Let's start with Washington Capitals with a 2.7 total heading into Boston. The Bruins have a 2.9 total. Pastrnak, Zacha, Geeky, Marchand, Lindholm, Coyle. Washington going Strome, Wilson, Mangiapane, McMichael, Dubois, Protas. How disgraceful was Boston on Saturday at home to Buffalo back-to-back? They had 14 shots on goal with like 9 minutes left in the third. Absolute disgrace. They scored a late power play goal. They scored a late empty net goal, but absolutely disgraceful from the Bruins. This is a worse matchup for them here. I see the Pastrnak line getting 10.8% projected ownership. Now, it's a decent 5-on-5 spot against Strome, Wilson, Mangiapane. Not great. I don't know if I want to pay 16.7 for Pastrnak line, almost 11% ownership on an 11-game slate with Morgan Geeky on it. Like, I like Geeky, but like, I don't know, man. it just doesn't feel great. Like in that range, like there's not anything super expensive besides Florida 1 and Tampa 1, right? And in that range, you have Columbus 1 for $400 less. Now they're coming in with a little bit more ownership, but they're in such a better spot. You also have, Montreal 1 a little bit more expensive. You have some Dallas lines that are cheaper. We have some Detroit if we ever get lines. You know what I mean? So like I don't particularly love Boston in the spot. I think a Pasternak one-off is fine. I was kind of on the Lindholm Marchand line last time. They're coming in under 1%, but like they're going to be matched up a fair bit with that McMichael Dubois Protoss line, and they have been legitimately good on both ends of the ice. So really the only interest on the Boston side I have is like a Pasternak one-off. The Washington side is a bit interesting. Like I don't think I'm going to go out of my way to play them. But that McMichael Dubois Protoss line is only 13,400. Yes, Boston has been better defensively. Yes, they've been taking less penalties, but their goaltending still has been pretty bad. I'm not going to, prioritize them, but like at 13,400 outside of like Tampa and Florida, they are pretty much a filler line. I don't know if you can fit them with Tampa and Florida. I haven't tried, but for those lines, like they would definitely fit with Minnesota, like that kind of stuff. I would throw them in a MME basket of lines that I would use with a more expensive line. So I think my favorite line in this game is McMichael Dubois Protoss, but I'm fine with the Pasternak one-off.
Yeah, I will say just in general for like single entry, I don't have a ton of interest in this game, generally speaking. One thing that could pique my interest, and it feels weird to say because this is something we would not have said 10 weeks ago, is like if Jeremy Swayman's starting, then I might have some more interest in Washington. Like Evolving Hockey's goal saved above expected. Swayman is dead last in the NHL this year. Now that's a cumulative stat, and he's played more games than some of the other bad goalies like Sabers and Caden Primo, Billy Huso, whatever. But being dead last by that metric is not a good thing. Makes me wonder if they don't just go back to Korpisalo. So I would watch the goaltending starts here. Like you're right about McMichael. Like I was just looking at McMichael and Dubois without Tom Wilson because they have played a fair bit with Tom Wilson most of the season. But like regardless of the winger next to them, 3.2 expected goals, 4.4 actual goals per 60 minutes. Talked a lot about how Protoss has turned into a pretty good puck carrier, playmaker type of player. He had a couple goals in their last game. So like if Swayman is starting, I wouldn't mind that McMichael Dubois Protoss line, like 2 out of 3, something like that. I'd be much more inclined in a 20 max or 150 to play them. Even if Swayman's starting, I don't think I'm going to be playing Washington in a single entry. It's kind of the same thing for the Boston side. Like Washington's goaltending has generally been pretty good. Washington's PK has been okay, not that great, but Boston's power play has been atrocious. If I were to play anything, it'd probably be Pasternak, Zacha, and Geeky. Like they're just scoring, whereas the Boston second line has struggled at times, especially with Charlie Coyle there. The Boston top line shooting under 10%, but over 3 goals per 60 minutes. Even Morgan Geeky has 24 shots in his last 10 games. Like he's not just an empty space over there, right? So I would probably just full stack Boston one. I'm gonna be honest. I just do not have a lot of interest in this game. It's a low total. There are a bunch of high totals everywhere else. Like Boston's coming in with double-digit ownership with a 2.9 total, and it's nowhere close to the highest total on the board. Like for me, it just makes kind of like an easy pass in single entry. So I think I prefer the McMichael line in this game overall. If Swayman is starting, generally speaking, not a ton of interest here.
Yeah, and Washington obviously hasn't skated yet as we talk about this game. I'm wondering if Ovechkin's going to be back tonight. That's something to keep an eye on. He has been practicing in a full contact jersey, so just something to keep an eye on. We haven't seen morning skate yet as we talk about it. St. Louis Blues with a 2.8 total. Heading into Detroit, the Wings have a 2.8 as well. Detroit completely nuked their lines in their last loss to Montreal, they started the game with Larkin, Raymond, Rasmussen, DeBrincat, Kane, Kopp, and then Tarasenko, Confer, Mott. Here's how they ended. It was Bergen, Larkin, Raymond, DeBrincat, Confer, Veleno, Kane, Casper, Tarasenko. Now, hopefully, we'll get some clarity at morning skate. As long as Larkin and Raymond are together, I would have interest in some sort of stack there. I don't know who's going to be with them. Maybe hoping, praying, praging, however you want to hope that maybe DeBrincat moves up there. That would be a line I'm interested in. I don't think it will be. It'll probably be Rasmussen or Bergen or Tarasenko or Mott or anyone but DeBrincat probably. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on the Detroit lines. I don't particularly love them as it is anyway. They just got brutalized twice by the Canadiens, which is, and they're the worst 5-on-5 team in hockey by expected goals, and they still couldn't do anything. So I don't have a ton of interest in Detroit here unless they load a top line. I'm fine with some sort of Larkin Raymond X, regardless of who it is, but my interest is on the Blues side. And that we also need to see lines there because in their last game, they took Neighbors off the top line and they moved Alex Texier up. So if it's Thomas Buchnevich Texier, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure it's going to be Texier on the top line. I believe they had practice yesterday after taking Saturday off, and they had Texier top line with Kyrou, Shen, and Holloway on the second line, and then Neighbors down on the third line.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know, man. Like, their sample with Texier really isn't that great. Like, he's just a guy.
He's not a good player. I don't know why they keep doing this.
Yeah. Like, he's a guy. Like, for that reason, I think I'd have more interest in Kyrou, Holloway, Shen. But, like, their sample isn't great either. So, like, this game is a big mess. Like, it's a pretty good power play spot, so I'm fine with, like, a Thomas Buchnevich neighbor stack. Like, just go with old St. Louis 1 for 13-7 or something like that, or, like, Kyrou. But these lines leave a lot to be desired in both games, unless at morning skate they, load a top line on either side. But, like, my interest is fairly mum on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, even if they do put DeBrincat on the top line, I think it's like 19,600, if I'm not mistaken. Like, we'll talk about Minnesota later. Minnesota's at home to Chicago. Their top line's 19.8. Pittsburgh's playing Philly. Their top line is also 19.8. Vegas is at home to Anaheim tonight. Vegas' top line, as currently constituted, is 18.4. Like, even if DeBrincat's on the top line, it probably wouldn't be my top three lines in that 18 to 20-ish K range. So, like, I don't know. I guess they're fine. One reason why they're okay is because they did reload the top power play unit in that last game. They mercifully put Kane and DeBrincat back on the top power play with Larkin and Raymond. That power play's generally been really good this year. Now, riding pretty hot by shooting percentage, but the St. Louis penalty kill has been very subpar, let's say. So, like, yeah, obviously if you're playing 150, you're going to have some Detroit 1 regardless if it's DeBrincat or not. But, like, again, they wouldn't be amongst my top three lines just in that price range alone, let alone on the entire slate. So I guess Detroit 1 is fine, but I just don't have a lot of interest in the Red Wings. Honestly, my interest is more on the St. Louis side. That Kyrou, Holloway, Shen line, like, they haven't been great, but a lot of it is shooting percentage driven, like shooting 6.5%. You know what I mean? Kyrou and Shen typically have pretty good playmaking numbers. Holloway, I think he's up to 10 goals this year or something like that. So, especially once you get Moritz Seider off the ice and there's no Edmondson, Ben Sherratt got hurt. Second and third lines have generally not been that good this year. Like, Kyrou, Holloway, Shen feels like a decent filler line to me at 13,300. 2.8 expected goals per 60 minutes for, 2.5 against. Like, they've been able to carry the play in their limited sample together. Holloway, like I said, 10 goals this year, 24 shots in his last 10 games. So he's, even though he doesn't get a lot of ice time, he's not power play one. He still gets involved offensively. I don't mind St. Louis too here as a filler. Detroit's just a mess. You only get Cairo in the top power play unit. That's kind of the thing that really sucks. But I don't mind St. Louis too here as a filler. I think it's really the only line I have interest in this game, basically regardless of what Detroit does with theirs.
Yeah, I mean, like, it kind of sucks that only Cairo is on the top power play unit, but the Blues power play unit kind of sucks. So, like, I don't know. But, like, after you get Cedar off the ice, like, this team's an absolute train wreck. So, like, yeah, I kind of agree with you there. As I agree with my pal Kevin O. Peterson here, saying Drury needs to go scorched earth. I don't want to talk about it. Tampa Bay Lightning with a 3 total heading into Florida. The Panthers have a 3.5 total. So we were trying to figure out, buddy, you have a kid, don't you? You have kids? Put a double espresso in your coffee and lock it up. We were talking a little bit about this game before the show because Matthew Tkachuk only played 7 minutes after the first period. They moved Reinhart up. So they finished with Verhaeghe, Barkov, Reinhart, Rodriguez, Bennett, Tkachuk, and then Luostarinen, Lundell, Samoskevich, who's actually pretty good. I like that fella. But we'll have to see at morning skate here what's going on with Tkachuk. We couldn't find anything from the beat writers about an injury. He did contribute on their first goal. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. With Reinhart there, it's $200 more expensive. It's not really a big deal. It's $22,200. They would be the second most expensive line of the night besides Kucherov, Point, and Gensel. We'll have to see what they do at morning skate. I would have some interest in Barkov or Hagee Reinhart. I would have interest with Barkov or Hagee X, whether it's Tkachuk, whether it's Reinhart, either I'm fine with here. And that Tampa top line trades chances. Like, they've gotten better as the season's gone on defensively, but they still trade chances. Not as much as, Pittsburgh has, but like, they still trade. They are back to back. There is a chance it could be Jonas Johansson. Now the Lightning don't play again until the 28th, so they may just throw, Vasilevsky on a back-to-back. But like, Vasilevsky hasn't been Vasilevsky in a few years. Yes, back-to-back Vasilevsky would be better than Jonas Johansson, but like, he's still not the Vasilevsky that contended for the Vezina all the time from a few years ago. So I do have a lot of interest of spending up for that Florida top line, whether it's Tkachuk, whether it's Verhaeghe, whether it's Tkachuk or Reinhart. I'm fine with either. That third line would interest me. We'll have to see if it is Lundell, Luostarinen, and Samoskevich. They are fairly cheap. I would put them in a filler basket for power play stacks and stuff like that. The Tampa side, like, I have no interest in Tampa 1 at that price, $25,900. That's just brutal. I don't think we've ever seen Edmonton 1 when they were rolling, or Colorado 1 when they're rolling that expensive. This is a tough matchup. They're going to see a fair bit of Barkov. I don't even care if there was no goalie in net. Like, I don't think I can get there in single entry. 0.4% projected ownership. I guess, like, in MME, if you want to get 1 or 2% just because, that's fine, but I'm pretty much out on Tampa here. Hagel, Cirelli, I guess, but like, they're getting expensive too, so I'm just pretty much out on Tampa here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not super excited about Tampa. Like, honestly, if anything, it is probably Tampa 2. Hagel, Cirelli, and Geeky. I mean, they have been really good this year. 3.1 expected goals, 4.6 actual goals per 60 minutes. Shooting 15%, but if, even if they're shooting 10%, they'd still be over 3 goals per 60, so pretty good. Hagel has mostly been getting the top power play time of late. Hagel and Cirelli, play a lot together on the PK. Not that you rely on shorthanded points, but they do score on the PK every once in a while. 15,800 is steep. There are other lines in that price range I would probably rather play, but they're not that far down the list for me. Once you get past the Barkov matchup, I don't think the matchups are that brutal on the Florida side. So I don't mind Tampa 2 here. I'm almost certainly not going to play them. So I think for me, it'd be more like a 20 max, 150 certainly type thing. For me, this is a Florida 1 game. You talk about about that Florida top line, that Barkov, Reinhart, Verhaeghe, over 100 minutes together so far this year. Defensively, 1.4 expected goals against per 60, 1 goal against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. Now, if you go back over the last 2 years, 1.4 expected goals against, 1.3 actual goals against, like literally 50% better than the league average over the last 2 years. Like, they are just monsters defensively. That's why I have no interest in Tampa. They've had a bit of trouble scoring this year. It's all shooting percentage driven. They shoot 3%. They've been shooting 3% together this year. They're like 10% like they should be. They'd be, well above average. Not worried about any of the matchups on the Tampa side. I'm not running out to play Florida 1 right now, assuming Reinhardt's on the top line. If Jonas Johansson gets confirmed at the starter, I will find it pretty hard to not play Florida 1 because I'm not worried about the 5-on-5 matchups for Tampa Bay. The Tampa Bay PK is fine, but not like elite or anything like that. The Florida power play with Aaron Ekblad, over 150 shot attempts per 60 minutes. Like, that's preposterous. Like, anything over like 120 is pretty high rate, and they're 25% above that. So I really do like Florida 1 in general. I kind of love them if Jonas Johansson gets confirmed, and I have them above Tampa Bay here tonight. Even the Top Stacks tool has them with Matt Tkachuk ahead of that Tampa Bay line. So I really do like Florida 1 here.
Yep. See some lines, like Columbus is still the only morning skate, but looks like Fabro is going to be back and Jet Greaves in net. But we'll get to that game when we get to it. Philadelphia Flyers with a 3.1 total heading into Pittsburgh. The Penguins have a 3.3. Tortorella went full Tortorella the last game. I don't have a clue what the lines are going to be. I don't. Like, you go on Natural Stat Trick and you look at their line combinations or their shift charts or whatever. There was like 89 million different combinations. I'm fine with the Konechny one-off, a Tippett one-off, Mitchkov one-off. I even like Tyson Forrester as a one-off. But outside of one-offing, we had our good couple-week stretch where Torts didn't touch the lines. Now we're heading into a Tortorella blender for the next few weeks. So I'm sticking to one-offs and calling it a day. We'll see if Couturier gets back in the lineup. Maybe Couturier back in the lineup calms it down a little bit, but I doubt it. So I'll be sticking to one-offs on the Philly side. On the Pittsburgh side, it does not matter to me who starts in net for the Flyers. They all suck. So, you do have to consider Crosby, Rust, Raquel here. 19,800, 13.3% top 2 stack, 7.2% projected ownership in our morning run here. It doesn't really matter the matchups because the Flyers goalies are last in the league combined by goals saved above expected at 5-on-5, on the power play, on the penalty kill. All situations, they're last in the NHL. That Crosby, Rust, Raquel line has been very good offensively. They're not fully correlated, which is annoying, but, the Pittsburgh power play kind of sucks anyway. So I'm very much in on Pittsburgh 1. Pittsburgh 2 is a bit interesting. Bunting and Cody Glass have really good numbers together. You throw Malkin in there, I think they'll be fine. The issue I'm running into, 10,700. They're coming in 5x their top 2 stack percentage at 10% projected. That's just a lot of ownership there. I know Bunting's on the top unit and get the other guys on the second unit. I don't know. Like, I like them, but at that ownership, I'm a bit leery. So it would be Pitt 1 for me and 1-offs on the Flyer side.
Yeah, the tough thing with the Flyers, too, is that with Couturier out, they put Scott Lawton on the top power play for like 2 of the power plays, and then they replaced him with Morgan Frost. The 3 constant forwards have been Mitchkov, Brink, and Konechny, and they play on 3 different lines. So, like, you can't even say, like, play this pair of players because they play together at 5-on-5 and power play or whatever, because everything got shifted around. So, yeah, I just, as we sit here right now, it's just tough to say what stack to play. Like, it is a good matchup outright. If they go back to, like, a Tippett, Konechny, Couturier top line or Tippett, Konechny, Frost top line or something like that, I think I would have interest in the Flyers as it sits right now. 1-off Konechny, 1-off Tippett. I think like Cates and Forster have, they've generally stuck together. Even they got broken up towards the end of the game last game. But like if you want a 2-man Cates and Forster, because they have been good. Like that line so far this year, 2.8 expected goals, 4 actual goals, riding hot, shooting nearly 14%. But even if they're shooting 9 to 10%, they'd still be above average by scoring. So like a Cates Forster 2-man, I think would be the only like stack that I would recommend right now. Other than that, it's like Konechny, Tippett, 1-offs, stuff like that. This is a Pittsburgh 1 game to me. As you said, all the goalies for the Flyers have been bad this year. They've had small spurts where they've been okay. Generally speaking, they've all been pretty bad. Crosby, Rust, and Raquel obviously had a big game last time out. They're up to 3.1 goals per 60 together this season. They're all skating 19 to 20 minutes. They are split on the power play, which sucks, but at 19,800 and with an ownership rate about half their top 2 stack percentage, they are one of those lines in that like 18 to 21K range that I would have some interest in playing here tonight. 3.3 total, modest ownership, good offense all season, 19 to 20 minutes. There's just a lot playing against bad goaltending, regardless of who starts. I think there's a lot to like here for the Penguins. So Pitt 1 for me. The Pitt depth, they did switch around the second and third lines a little bit last game. Makes me wonder, like, if they're still trying to find the right combinations because they've moved Tomasino around, they've moved Glass around. Puljujärvi's been in and out of the lineup at times. Bunting's balanced between the second and third lines. Like, I think the depth is. I would be more interested in like Michael Bunting 1-off, Drew O'Connor 1-off, like those types of things than I would be in full stacking anything from the Pittsburgh depths. For me, if I'm stacking from Pittsburgh tonight, it's the top line because by top stack, by ownership, by even my own numbers, they're all grading out pretty well in this matchup.
Yep. Montreal Canadiens with a 3.1 total heading into Columbus. The Blue Jackets have a 3.4 total. As I just said, it looks like Jet Greaves will be starting for Columbus. Jet Greaves is min price on DraftKings. That is a problem. As it stands, Montreal going Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky, Line, Doc, Newhook. Columbus going Monahan, Marchenko, Voronkov, Johnson, Sillinger, Olivier, Fantilli, JVR, ZAR. This is a really good power play spot on both sides here. Columbus coming in with a lot more ownership, and deservedly so. That top line, Monahan, Marchenko, Voronkov. Excellent numbers on the season. 16,300. 10.4% top 2 stack, 14.3% projected ownership. Quick math off the top of my head. I don't know if you can squeeze them in with Pittsburgh 1, even if you use Greaves, but it would be close. I do really like Columbus 1 here. Looks like Fabro is going to be back with Werenski, which helps. I think throwing Werenski in the stack if you're not spending up for another line is a good idea. The depth of Columbus, I don't have a ton of interest in. I don't like these lines. Not a huge fan. On the flip side, like this is just a tough 5-on-5 matchup for Montreal 1. it is a really, really good power play spot. But like they run the power play through Line A and Hudson now. So like those would be the two guys that I think I would play. Like if you want to add a third, you can add Suzuki, you can add Caulfield, you can add Slavkovsky if you want. But I think like a Line A one-off or a Line A Hudson two-man is probably where I would go on the Montreal side.
Yeah, and you can't fit Columbus in Pittsburgh. You don't even need to use Greaves either. Like you can put in like 7,800 goalie and still have like $3K per defense spot or something. So you can do it. One more. It is funny. Jet Greaves is min-priced. He's played 3 games for Columbus in the last 2 weeks. It's like he's just been on the roster. It's like okay.
Probably 12,300 on FanDuel for no reason.
The other note here is Columbus called up Denton Mateychuk. He's a rookie. Yeah, he's a rookie defenseman. He looks like he's going to start the game with Provorov. He's arguably the top defensive prospect in the AHL. Or just not in the NHL right now. He was drafted, I think it was 12th overall a couple of years ago. He's a rookie he's a 20-year-old rookie defenseman in the AHL this season, and he leads the AHL defenseman in scoring. Not just rookie defenseman, all defensemen. I was looking at Hockey Prospecting, which is a model that looks at defense production for players as prospects and how they compare. 3 of his 5 draft year comps were Paul Coffey, Zach Werenski, and Rasmus Dahlin. I was looking at, because I write at Elite Prospects, I was looking at the Elite Prospects profile. Basically, like, if he hits his offensive upside, he could be the next Roman Josi. If he plays more defensively, like a more two-way game, he's like the next Devin Taves. Like this is legitimately one of the top defense prospects in hockey. He's not in the player pool, but I do think it changes things for Columbus. Like if he can actually play well, right? Because their defensive depth, like Werenski's been fine, Severson's been fine, Provorov, all that's been fine. It's been the guys like Harris, Jack Johnson, Christensen, like it just hurts the defensive depth, the team whenever they're on the ice. If Mateychuk can play well, I think that changes things for Columbus quite a bit, especially for the second and third lines. Now, I agree with you. I don't have interest in the Columbus second and third lines as presently constituted. If I play Columbus, it is Columbus 1. Like they have been phenomenal this year. 3.7 expected goals for, 2.4 against per 60 minutes, 5.9 actual goals for, shooting 16.5%. But again, they're shooting even half that rate, which is well below average. They're well above average by scoring because they're just creating so many shots. So I agree with you. I really do like Columbus 1 here. 15% ownership, I don't think is that big of a deal. Montreal's been one of the most heavily penalized teams in the league. I think they're second on the season and first over the last 31 days. So, and the Columbus power play has actually been good. So this is a good power play spot. Montreal's been better at 5-on-5, but still not great. And their defense still has some significant lapses. And I can tell you that as someone that watches Montreal every night. So, yeah, I really do like Columbus 1 here. They're the line that I would go to on the Columbus side. On the Montreal side, it's a tough matchup for the top line. But again, it's kind of like the Philly thing where I don't really like matching up against the Sean Couturier line, but the goaltending's not good. And it's been kind of the same thing for Columbus. Now, the last time I said that, Elvis Merzlikins went out and had his best game in 4 years. I worry that I just jinxed the same thing. But Caulfield, Suzuki, and Slavkovsky, since they've been reunited, 70 shot attempts for per 60, 23 against per 60. They've been really, really good. It feels bad stacking without Patrick Laine. So I think if I were to play Montreal, especially where Columbus does take penalties, Columbus's penalty kill isn't that good. Montreal's power play has been a lot better with Lane Hudson. Obviously, it's been better with Patrick Laine too. So I would probably take out one of Caulfield or Slavkovsky and put in Laine. God, maybe there's even a revenge factor here for him. So it's the top line, but I would probably take off one of the wingers and put on Laine. But generally speaking, it's Columbus 1 that I like best in this game.
Yep. Agreed. Our Columbus Blue Jackets. Buffalo Sabres with a 2.6 total heading into Long Island. No one likes to see that. The Islanders have a 3 total. As it's currently constituted, Buffalo going Thompson, Tuck, Zucker, Peterka, Cousins, Krebs, Kulich, Benson, Lafferty. like I really just don't have interest in Buffalo. So I'm pretty much out on them. Like a Thompson one-off is fine. But, man, they've been so bad defensively. I have interest in Barzal, Lee, JG Pajot at 13.5. Like, they've been decent in their small sample. That Thompson-Zucker tuck line sucks defensively. Like, you can do whatever you want with JG Pajot. Even with Barzal back, I think, from a DFS standpoint, Lee has been their best forward. I know Cliffy talked about how good Sipelkov's underlying metrics have been, but like Lee has been right up there too. He's been excellent this season. I want some Barzal, Lee, JG Pajot as a filler. That Nelson Palmieri Duclair line 12.8. They're coming in at 7.5% projected ownership in our morning run. Like Cliffy talked about on the last show, like without Sipelkov, they've been getting run over. So I'm out on them. My favorite line would be Barzal, Lee, JG Pajot. I guess I'm fine if you need a cheaper line with Horvat, Sipelkov, Holmstrom. Out on the Sabers, it would be Barzal, Lee for me. If you need a cheaper line, Horvat, Sipelkov.
Yeah, so I don't mind the Lee, Barzal, Pajot line just because, as you said, like Lee has been really good this year. I think he can help elevate Barzal as Barzal kind of finds his footing turning from injury. Lee, Barzal, and Pajot, though, 13,500. You look at other line, like we talked about St. Louis earlier. I think I'd probably rather play St. Louis than that line. Washington, we talked about them. Like there's a couple Dallas lines that are in a decent spot here tonight. Both Utah lines are in that 13 to 4. Top two lines are in that 13 to 14K range. There are just other lines in that price range I think I'd rather play. That's why I think if I'm playing the Islanders, going back to what we talked about on Saturday, and that's that Horvat, Sipelkov, Holmstrom line. Like I think Horvat, was it a 3-point game, 2 goals, 1 assist or something like that? I know he had at least 2 goals. They're split on the power play. That sucks. But the Islanders don't draw a ton of power play opportunities anyway. And the power play just generally has not been that good this year. Like you're not stacking the Islanders because of their power play or because of the power play matchup. You're stacking them because Sipelkov has been really good this year. And he has helped elevate Horvat. They're up to 105 minutes together, 65 shot attempts per 60 minutes, 3.5 expected goals, 4 per 60 minutes, 4.6 actual goals for per 60 minutes. They've just been really, really good. Simon Holmstrom, take him or leave him. I really wish like it was like Anthony Duclair there or someone like that. But at 11,400, Horvat, Sipelkov, Holmstrom's a genuine filler line that you can put in if you're playing like a Florida, or you can play him with Pittsburgh if you want to use an expensive defenseman or something like that. So I do like Horvat, Sipelkov, Holmstrom here in this matchup. Buffalo's just looked like a mess. I'm with you. I just don't have a ton of interest in basically any Buffalo line that they can put together. Top line's going to be expensive no matter what they do. Second and third lines have been changing basically like every game. Like a Cousins Paterka 2-man or something like that, I guess is fine. But I'm kind of out on the Sabres. I actually do like the Islanders more here, especially where like they're not getting a ton of ownership. 4%, 8%, 2%. Like this isn't your typical like 2% top 2 stack, 14% ownership that we get sometimes with the Islanders when they're at home. So the Horvat, Sipelkov, Holmstrom line for me.
Yep. And Sorokin is confirmed to start that game. Also, Jeremy Swayman is confirmed to start for Boston here tonight. Just reading through some stuff. Jack Greaves also confirmed. Min Price. Merzlikins is banged up.
Pittsburgh does have Bunting and Glass with Malkin, so it looks like they're going back to that. And the Detroit skate, Tarasenko, Larkin, Raymond, DeBrincat, Kopp, Kane.
Carolina, the Hurricanes, 3.1 total. Heading into Nashville, the Predators have a 2.8 total. Fun games. Carolina beat the Rangers yesterday. Now they're on the road in Nashville. I don't have a ton of interest. in Carolina, like, I guess in MME, Aho, Jarvis, Roslovic is fine. I don't know. I just don't like these lines as currently constituted. I also don't have a ton of interest in Nashville here. One, it's a brutal matchup. Two, like Forsberg, Marchessault, Stamkos are 19,100. At that price, I'm just going to go play Pittsburgh. So, again, don't mind Novak Evangelista as a two-man, but this is a brutal matchup. There is no massive need for basically a min-price two-man unless you're playing Tampa Bay, which I don't think many people will be doing. So, like, I don't see myself prioritizing this game at all in single entry. If you get to some in MME, that's fine, but I don't particularly love this game.
This is an interesting game.
It is, I know.
For a couple reasons. One, I mean, we mentioned the other day on the show, Carolina's defensive numbers have been sliding for a little while now. I think it's like basically middle of the league by expected goals against. Actual goals against are worse. It hasn't mattered if it's been Kochetkov or Spencer Martin in net. Now, Kochetkov won yesterday. They only allowed one goal against, so fine. A couple games before that, he had a shutout against the Islanders. So he's been a little bit better. He's probably not going to start tonight because they played yesterday. So it looks like it's probably going to be Dustin Tokarski back in net. And, I don't want to jinx anything here because Tokarski actually, I think it was, one goal against in his first start against Columbus. But there's a reason he hasn't been able to stick in the NHL for most of his career. Carolina is on a road back-to-back. Nashville's been better offensively. Now, here's the thing. Carolina's penalty kill has still generally been very, very good, as it almost always is. So I don't really feel the need to play Nashville 1 here tonight to get all the power play guys in my lineup. It's just not a good power play matchup. So I agree with you. I'm not in on Forsberg, Marchessault, Stamkos. Probably rather go play like a Minnesota, Pittsburgh, something like that. Vegas certainly. But the Nashville depth is interesting because there are expensive lines we might want to play. Tampa Bay, if you are getting there. Florida, certainly. O'Reilly, Nyquist, and Zachary L'Heureux so far this season. 3.1 expected goals, 3.5 actual goals per 60. O'Reilly is on the top power play, so at least you get that. Like Evangelista, Jankowski have been good in a sample that is much bigger. It's like up to 120 minutes now or something like that. So I think Nashville 2 and 3, especially where like that Kotkaniemi line has not been good defensively basically at any point this season. Like Nashville 3 especially is not going to see any of the top line. I would probably go to O'Reilly, like an O'Reilly Nyquist or O'Reilly L'Heureux two-man, just because you do get O'Reilly on the power play. But I think Nashville 2 and 3 are a little interesting here if you are going expensive Tampa, expensive Florida, something like that, and you need a cheap two-man elsewhere. I don't mind the matchup. They have been good. It's Dustin Tokarski in net. Carolina's road back-to-back. I like the depth from Nashville. Carolina side, like take it or leave it. I'm probably going to leave it. Jarvis, Aho, Roslovic is probably where I would go. They have been up to 3.1 goals per 60 with Jarvis and Roslovic on Aho's wing. But Nashville's penalty kill has generally been pretty good. Carolina's not been shy to switch around their lines quite a bit. I think I'd be more inclined to play Carolina in like 820 max, certainly 150 or something like that. Single entry, I don't think I get there. Single entry, I think the only thing I have interest in is the cheap depth from Nashville.
Chicago Blackhawks with a 2.3 total heading into Minnesota. The Wild have a 3.2.
I noticed you let out a pretty heavy sigh before saying Chicago's going into Minnesota.
Oh God. I guess like it is probably going to be Marc-Andre Fleury again in that. No one's playing the Blackhawks for good reason. I guess I'm fine with the Bedard one-off, and Nazar one-off is fine. Like, penalty kill has been awful, as we always say. 5-on-5 without Eriksson Ek, they've been sliding a little bit, but like these lines suck, man. So like, I don't know. Outside of some one-offs, if you happen to get there, I'm out on the Blackhawks. The Minnesota side is interesting. I'll start with the second line. Boldy, Gaudreau, Johansson, 12,708%. No, thank you. Like a Boldy one-off, I guess, is fine, but like that line can't create anything. They couldn't hit water if they fell off a boat in the ocean. So really the only line of interest in this game for me would be Minnesota 1, 20.8% top two stack, 18% projected ownership. I don't know if I prefer Minnesota to Pittsburgh. I think I'm leaning Pittsburgh. Like, I know Chicago is one of the worst teams in the NHL, but like 5-on-5 defensively, they're in the middle of the league. They're not. It's not like a brutally bad 5-on-5 team. You know what I mean? They'll be seeing a bunch of the Bedard line. Like, they're not great, but they're not awful. Like, Pittsburgh's in a much better matchup here just because the goaltending sucks. Like, I'm fine with Minnesota 1 here, but like when Pittsburgh's coming in less than half the ownership, I lean a little bit to Pittsburgh 1 here. Like, I'm completely fine with Minnesota 1, but at that ownership, I want it to be a great 5-on-5 matchup. I want it to be a great power play matchup. And it's not like, that Minnesota 1 line has been excellent at 5-on-5. They only have 2.75 expected goals per 60 minutes in a 235-minute sample. You know what I mean? It's fine, but it's a Kaprizov line. So, like, I like Minnesota 1 here. I just think if I'm going to spend in that range, I prefer Pittsburgh here, as disgusting as that sounds. Like, they're fine. This game sucks. Like, this game sucks.
Yeah. I will mention they did send Jesper Wallstedt to the AHL. So it looks like Gustafsson is going to be back. Whether he starts or not, like, he might just like take warm up and then sit on the bench, and they'll let Fleury start so they can rest Gustafsson a bit more, but just watch for that. Yeah, I'm out on Chicago. I'm just not playing Chicago here. Minnesota's already played Chicago twice this year. Minnesota scored 4 goals in those combined in those 2 games. And I was looking at the numbers, 2.3 expected goals in those 2 games at 5-on-5. Like you said, Chicago's generally been okay defensively this season. Their penalty kill's also been good, and Minnesota's power play has just been bad, basically like easily below average, basically all season, whether Eriksson Ek and Zuccarello were healthy or not. So it's a good penalty kill against a bad power play. All of Chicago's problems have generally been offensively, not necessarily defensively, right? Like, they have some bad defensive games, but the problem is that they can't score, so they lose a lot of like 3-1 games and stuff like that. So I if I'm playing anything out of this game, the only line that I have interest in is Minnesota 1. I'm not playing the Minnesota depth. I'm not playing Chicago in single entry. For me, it's Minnesota 1. Like, they don't have great expected goals numbers. They do have 4.1 goals per 60. Like, Kaprizov has generally been able to kind of drive goals regardless of where he is. The thing is like, with 18% ownership, that is the highest projected ownership line of the night. I get that they're perfectly correlated. They'll play 20 to 23 minutes. They have the highest top 2 stack, but like, if I'm going to pay up, I'll probably, like you said, Pittsburgh. We'll talk about Vegas later. I might just go play Florida instead. Like, there are other options there. I think I'd rather play. I'm fine with Minnesota, not running out to play them here tonight. I do think if I'm playing single entry, there are other expensive lines that I would rather target.
Yeah. So we just locked in like a 7-6 overtime game, but that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. That's a pretty good pun for Christmas time. I'm proud of myself for that. Good one. San Jose Sharks with a 2.4 total. Heading into Vancouver, the Canucks have a 3.5. This is a really good matchup for Vancouver. I would just err on the caution if you're watching this live or tuning in at later this afternoon. We obviously don't have Vancouver lines yet. They did blow the game the other night, so I don't know what the lines are going to be. As it is, it's the best that we know to our ability. It's Philip DiGiuseppe with JT Miller and Besser, DeBrusk, Pettersson, Hoglander, Garland, Suter, Dakota, Joshua. That's how they finished.
That was they also had that at practice yesterday, so I think Hoglander's probably going to stay next to Pettersson.
Yeah, this is a really good power play matchup. I don't really want to stack across 3 lines for the power play, and Elias Pettersson has been getting yo-yoed on and off the top unit. So I think if anything, if you want a power play stack, it would be Miller, Besser, and then leave DiGiuseppe off and add in Garland, because he'll be on the top power play unit. I think that's what I would do. Like, I'm completely fine with full stacking Besser, Miller, DiGiuseppe at 13,900. They're, on this slate, they're probably a filler. You know what I mean? They're coming in 2.2% top 2, 4.3% projected ownership. That would be the line I would prefer anyway. Like, I don't have a ton of interest in the Pettersson, DeBrusk, Hoglander line. Yes, Pettersson and Hoglander have good numbers together, but the questions with Pettersson's health, yo-yoing him off the top power play unit, don't really like playing DeBrusk. I'm in on the Miller, Besser, DiGiuseppe line. This is a pretty tough matchup for the Sharks. Even if, like, Demko's been struggling since he's come back, but like, this is just a brutal matchup. If anything, I would go to Macklin, Celebrini, Toffoli, Kovalenko. I think I saw some beats saying it's a homecoming for Celebrini. Is he from that area, I guess?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you want the narrative street, I guess. But, like, if anything, it would be Celebrini, Toffoli, Kovalenko, but I don't think I'll be prioritizing the Sharks at all.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, it's tough with Vancouver. Like, there was like a 5-game stretch-ish where Pettersson kind of looked like the Pettersson of old. That's gone away fairly quickly. I was looking, he has 1 goal in his last 12 games, 21 shots on goal in that game, so well under 2 shots per game. I think it's like 4 times in those 12 games he had 0 shots. And as you said, there are some games where he's top power plays, some he's not. Some games he plays 15, 16 minutes. Some games he plays 20. Like, because they're so cheap, I guess they're okay. But with the way San Jose usually takes penalties, the way San Jose's penalty kill has generally struggled, I probably want to get the line that I'm fairly certain is going to have at least 2 guys on the power play, and that's Besser, Miller, DiGiuseppe. Now, even Miller's not looked that good since he returned from his absence from the team. He has 4 shots in 6 games since he came back. It's like, there's just not a whole lot going on here. We'll get to defensemen later. I honestly think my favorite thing in this game is just playing Quinn Hughes. But I think if I'm stacking anything from the Vancouver side, it's Besser, Miller. And then I think you can take DiGiuseppe off and then just put on Garland, because the line is so cheap as it is. Garland is $1,900 more expensive, but it still only makes the line still under 16K at that point. So, and you get a full power play stack. It is a good power play matchup. So Besser, Miller, DiGiuseppe. If you're fine getting more expensive, I'd probably add in Garland, but I'm off the Pettersson line. Honestly, think I'd rather just play the San Jose side here. It feels weird to say, but with Kovalenko, that Celebrini line, 3.5 goals per 60 minutes, shooting under 10%. They're not riding hot, and they're still scoring a lot. And Celebrini, Toffoli, basically, as long as they have anybody but Barclay Goodrow on their wing, has been pretty good offensively this year. It is not a great matchup, but it is a fairly cheap line, 14,200 with Kovalenko on the wing. Foley gets 16, 17 minutes. Celebrini's 19, 20. They're both on the top power play unit. Vancouver's taking a lot more penalties lately, 3.2 times shorthanded over the last 31 days. San Jose's drawing a lot of power plays, 3.2 power play opportunities per game over the last 31 days. Honestly think if anything in this game, I'd prefer to play Celebrini, Toffoli, Kovalenko. But if you feel so inclined on playing Vancouver, like Vancouver does have a 3.5 total. Like, let's not discount too much here. But it'd be Miller, DiGiuseppe, Besser. But I'm not super excited to play the Canucks here despite that high total.
Yeah, I don't like making assumptions about players, but obviously we know JT Miller had issues in New York with partying. We don't know exactly why he left the team, but I wonder if he wasn't really skating or training or anything like that, and he just needed to get his legs under him or something. Like, I don't want to assume anything, but maybe it's taken him a few games to really get back into it. So, Quick Party woke up early just for this. I don't have any embarrassing stories to tell Quick Party this morning. He has a good list on me, the cut and paste, and now the greater than, less than. I really need a third one to complete the trifecta for him, but get some coffee. Maybe I'll have something for you. Dallas Stars with a 3.3 total heading into Utah. The Soakers have a 2.7. Utah blew the game against the Ducks yesterday. They lost 5-4 in a shutout. Logan Cooley got benched in the third. They're not going to run morning skate. I am slightly concerned they're going to blow up their lines. The coach was pissed in his presser yesterday. You rarely see emotion from that dude. That dude is like even keel as even keel gets, and he just kind of just trashed his team. As it stands, if the Keller, Hayton, Schmaltz line is together, they are very good. And that Dallas top line with Bork there has not been great. So I would have interest in the Utah top line here at 14-2. But again, like, it's not to the extent of the Canadiens, but like Dylan Genther is the Patrick Laine of the Utah Soakers. So like it's kind of hard to stack something without Genther. Now I have to see what they do with Cooley. I guess you can go Cooley Genther and then react to the news. The problem this is a later start, but like everyone's kind of priced in the same range on that. Like obviously Keller is the most expensive. Like it does cause some concern there. I guess you could one-off Genther and just call it a day. I don't mind Utah one if they stick together. The Dallas side is more interesting here. They have the higher total. It's back-to-back for Utah. It will be Karel Vejmelka in net, which is a big upgrade from Jackson Stuber. These lines leave a lot to be desired, right? Because I don't have any faith in Evgeny Dodonov in the top six with Duchesne and Marchment. I don't love that. Like Maverick Bork has kind of looked out of place with Hintz and Robertson, so I don't love that. So that would leave Johnson, Stankov, and Ben. They haven't been great in their small sample, and they're coming in with 9.2% projected ownership, 4.2% top two stack. That would probably be the line for me on the Dallas side. But when push comes to shove there, I'm just going to spend the extra $500 and play Utah one. Like, unless we get different lines in morning skate for Dallas, I don't particularly love them here.
Yeah, on the Utah side, like if Keller, Hayton, Schmaltz is together, that would be the line that I would have interest in. One of the reasons is like it's not really a good power play matchup for Utah, so I don't feel the need to put in Genther here. To me, this is more about a 5-on-5 matchup. Now, even a 5-on-5 is not a great matchup, but Bork certainly does make the Dallas top line a little bit worse defensively than if they had Wyatt Johnston or something there. So I don't mind Utah one as long as Keller, Hayton, Schmaltz are together. But, this is one of the late games to start. Like San Jose, Vancouver starts the same time after that. It's Anaheim, Vegas, and then that's it for an 11-game slate. So if they're not together, you can swap to like Dallas or something like that. I think that's probably what you would have to do if Keller, Hayton, Schmaltz aren't together. But, they have been really good together this year. 3.3 goals per 60 minutes in 280 minutes together. Don't mind Utah one. I would much rather play the Dallas side. Now, Robertson, Hintz, and Bork, take it or leave it. Like, they're fine. Robertson, Hintz, top power play unit. Like, Robertson, 26 shots in his last 10 games, so he's shooting a little bit more. Hintz has actually looked good in the Dallas games that I've watched lately. But I agree with you on Dadonov. I don't have any faith in him on that line at all. It's Johnston, Stankoven, and Ben. Now, you mentioned they haven't been scoring, and they haven't been. 2.7 goals per 60. It's a little bit above league average, but not great or anything like that. But they're also shooting 6.5%, right? Like if they're shooting 10% or something like that as a line, this line is over 4 goals per 60 minutes, right? I think Johnston, Stankoven, and Ben, assuming that they'll probably get second and third line matchups or whatever from Utah, like they get depth matchups. Ben and Johnston both on the top power play unit. The top power play unit's been the better unit over like the last 10 games. They haven't been good, but even that is fairly shooting percentage driven. You know, Dallas is getting defensemen back. They were sick for like a week or whatever. I really do like Johnston, Stankoven, and Ben. They're one of my favorite lines in that 13 to 15K-ish range. So it's that line for me. If you want to play Robertson, Hintz, or Bork, I think they're okay. If you want to play Utah, you can do that and go to the Keller, Hayton, Schmaltz line, and then if they're broken up, swap to one of these Dallas lines. But it is that Johnston, Stankoven, Ben line that I like best in this game.
Yeah. Anaheim Ducks with a 2.3 total heading into Vegas. The Golden Knights have a 3.8. We'll have to see if, Vegas, I don't know if they skated yesterday. These are the lines projected from last game. Eichel, Stone, Howden. Like, I don't know if Barbashev's going to be back. So, like, if Barbashev's back, I think he slides into the Howden spot. Carlson, Hurdle, Kolesar, Dorofeyev, Olsen. I'm not even going to pronounce the last name. Tanner. My boy Tanner. Ducks going Vetrano, Terry Strom. They're on a back-to-back, the Ducks, by the way, and Leo Carlson got hurt. So, honestly, don't know the lines. I would assume Vetrano, Terry Strom is the only one that sticks together. I don't have any interest in the Ducks here. I'm out on them. Vegas is a little bit more interesting, and by a little bit, a lot of it. It's a really good power play matchup. The problem is, like, the Golden Knights power play sucks. Like, they have worse expected goals than the Wild power play, and the Wild power play sucks. So, like, what do you really do here? If Barbashev is back and he does take that top line role, I would have interest in Eichel, Stone, Barbashev. I don't know if I want to play a 15% line with Brett Howden on it. Like Rangers legend Brett Howden. But, like, I don't know. If you do want to make it a little bit more expensive and make it a power play stack, even though their power play sucks, you can leave off Howden and add in Victor Olofsson, I think. That would keep it under 20,000. We'll have to wait and see it skate because, like, Barbashev being back would be a big one. And I'd have just straight up interest in that line. That's really about it, other than, like, leaving off Howden, adding in Olofsson, or adding in, Hurdle to make it a power play stack. I don't like the depth lines. Like Carlson, Hurdle, Kolesar. I don't particularly love Dorofeyev, Olsen, Tanner. Okay, like there's lines that I prefer in those ranges that are better. So it would be Vegas one if it's Barbashev. If it is Howden, I'd leave off Howden and add in Olofsson out on the Ducks.
Yeah, I'll be quick on Anaheim. I don't have any interest in the Ducks here tonight. I have a lot of interest in Vegas. I agree with you. I'd rather have Barbashev on the top line than Brett Howden. But even if Brett Howden's there, like he's fine. Like he's not a guy that will make them better. But he's also only 2,900. Like in DFS, you don't need him to do a ton. It's another one of those, one assist, couple shot type guys, and you'll be okay. The Vegas top line in their 50 minutes together without Barbashev, 5.7 goals per 60 minutes. Now that's shooting 16.8%, but even at like 11% or whatever, they're still well above average. I think the power play has been a little bit better than you're giving them credit for. Now, there isn't much of a sample there. Obviously, with Victor Olofsson, it's only like 25 minutes. But if you look at, the whole season, 10 goals per 60, it's like that's good for a top power play unit. It's not elite or anything like that. It's not Tampa Bay or anything, like they're nowhere close to that. But I think it's good enough, especially against a bad Anaheim penalty kill where the Ducks do take a fair amount of penalties. So, like, I really do like Vegas 1. They're coming in with a lot of ownership. The ownership 15.7%, 15.2% top 2 stack. I think he can take out Howden and put in Hurdle. Even if Barbashev's there, I think he can take off Barbashev and put in Hurdle. But it is Vegas 1 that I really do like them in this game. I'm not worried about, especially with Carlson out. Like, Carlson is the best defensive forward that Anaheim has. I think this is just lining up to be a very good Vegas game. So Eichel, Stone, Howden is what I like best on the Vegas side. If you want to go down to Carlson, Hurdle, Kolasar, like Hurdle and Kolasar have quietly been pretty good this year. 3.5 expected goals for, 2.4 against, and 160 minutes together. Hurdle's on the top power play unit. They're fairly cheap. I don't mind them as a filler, but it's Vegas 1 for me in this game, and they're just generally one of my favorite lines on the slate. Like, I do have them near the top of my board. Top 2 stack, I think they're 4th. I have them 5th, but yeah, Vegas 1 is, I think, one of my favorite lines on the board here, almost regardless of if it's Howden, Barbashev, whomever on the top line.
Yeah. I mean, Eichel, Stone, X. As long as it's Stone with Eichel, it doesn't really matter. Obviously better with Barbashev. Looks like Tristan Jarry is probable for Pittsburgh tonight. Looks like he's the first goalie off at skate. Lipstick on a pig with the Pittsburgh goalies. Let's talk about some defensemen here. At the top of the board, we have Werenski, Yossi, Quinn Hughes, Rasmus Dahlin, Victor Hedman, John Carlson, Miro Heiskanen, and Moritz Seider. For me, it's Werenski or Hughes in the really expensive realm. However you want to rank them, you can rank them. I think based on point per dollar, I would imagine Hughes is the better play, but I equally like both. I think Miro Heiskanen at 6,100 is fine. Noah Dobson, 5,900, fine. Shea Theodore, 5,800. Needs to get on the score sheet on the power play, but this is one of the best spots. So what are you thinking here?
Yeah, of the expensive defense, like super expensive, I have Werenski, Hughes, Yossi in that order by point per dollar. Stochastic also has them, Werenski, Hughes, Yossi by point per dollar, Yossi slightly higher by raw fantasy point output. But Werenski, Hughes, and Yossi are the 3 expensive defensemen that I would really be considering here tonight. The rest just don't interest me a ton. In the mid-price range, there's not a lot there that I like. Like, I think Shea Theodore is fine. Both him and Alex Pietrangelo from Vegas, depending on what you do with your lineup. I think if you want to play like a Vegas power play stack, like to throw in Theodore, I think that's fine. Damon Severson, Charlie McAvoy, I think is okay. Noah Dobson is in a decent matchup. He's okay, but it's basically just the Vegas guys in the mid-price range that I like. The cheap defenseman, I think, is where things get interesting because Thomas Harley's now under 4K. Noah Hannafin, we liked him the other night. He had a big game. Like him again here tonight, as long as he stays in that 3 to 4K range on DraftKings. Ivan Provorov is playing with Matejchuk. Maybe it'll lift Provorov. Probably eats into his minutes a little bit, but still don't mind Provorov. Ryan McDonough in a decent spot to kind of rack up block shots here going into Florida. See if we get any news on St. Louis through the day. But Cam Fowler was running the top power play unit in the last game for the Blues, and he's 2,900. Not that I like Cam Fowler, but he'll probably get like 22 minutes and maybe with top power play time. Like, that's worth quite a bit, regardless of who you are for 2,900. Carson Soucy, you mentioned the other day. Don't mind Soucy for a cheap defenseman. Nolan Allen from Chicago is basically like the number 3-4 defenseman now for the Blackhawks. Don't mind him for cheap. Adam Pelech, he's cheap. I forgot to catch the Detroit defenseman. I don't know if Ben Sherratt was. I'm gonna go look that up here real quickly. I don't know if Ben.
On the left side, the other guys on the roster are all min-price. Wilgason, Gustafsson, Albert Johansson.
yeah. Edmondson was back at morning skate today. Sherratt was out. So if you want to go to Edmondson in a decent home matchup, he's only 3,600. Probably, if he plays, he's probably going to have to play a lot of minutes with Sherratt out. So I don't mind Edmondson either.
Yeah, quick part says Sherratt out, Edmondson in. There you go. Goalies, we obviously don't have a lot of confirmed here, so we're just going to go off some probables here. Spending up. We'll have to see if Gustafsson's back, but if he's back, he's 8,100. I don't want to pay 8,300 for Fleury, 8,500 for Demko. Not really. Like, if I'm spending up, it would be for Gustafsson if he starts. It is not a very pretty goalie slate here. Cam Talbot was in the starter's net for Detroit. Don't mind him. Sorokin at 7,800 kind of sticks out. I do like Vejmelka if you are fading Dallas. I don't mind the Washington starter. I would prefer it to be Logan Thompson. We'll have to see who starts for. I would imagine it's going to be Montembeault, even though he's played a ton recently. But he is 7,300. Saros against the Hurricanes obviously makes some sense. I think that's about as low as I would go. Like, if Askarov starts against Vancouver, I would have interest there. And obviously, Jack Greaves min price, that's going to be a problem. But, like, honestly, Jack Greaves is going to be super high owned. And if it is Askarov for the Sharks, I think he would be a nice pivot.
Yeah, like, I think there are some decent expensive goalies to use here tonight. Like, I think Aiden Hill's not in a bad spot for a shutout, assuming he gets to start, like, at home against Anaheim. Anaheim has no Carlson, rode back-to-back, about to take off for Christmas. Like, don't mind Hill. Ilya Sorokin at home against a Buffalo team that's just been pitiful. So those two and Gustafsson, like, I think they're decent expensive options, but I think there are a lot of cheaper options that I do like here tonight. Like, assuming Binnington gets a start in Detroit, he's 7,500. You mentioned UC Saros at home against Carolina. Saros is 7,200. We'll see who starts for Chicago. I think they go back to Soderblom. He's 7,100 against a Minnesota team that's really been struggling over the last couple of weeks. You mentioned Jack Greaves has been priced at 6,500. Askarov is 6,900. Like, I think there are a lot of goalies 7,500 and under on DK to play here tonight. I don't think this is a night where I'm necessarily, like, if you have the salary and want to play Hill or want to play, Sorokin or want to play Gustafsson, I think that's fine. Like, nothing against it if you have the salary, but if you need to save some salary, I think there are like 4 or 5 goalies in that 7,500 and under range that are playable here tonight.
Yep, agreed. There are no games tomorrow, Wednesday, or Thursday. We will be back on Friday. It's a nice little 8-gamer. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
Last game before the break. Our boys are playing against my boys, but I'm going to go with a guy that's turned into one of my favorite players to watch, and Kirill Marchenko.
That is a good pick. I really want to go spicy on the last day here. So I'm going to do it before the Christmas break. I'm going Michael Bunting.
That is spicy. A Bunting hat trick? That'll end my night pretty quick here tonight, I imagine.
Probably same. But we picked Bunting. Happy holidays, everybody. Merry Christmas. Hanukkah starts on Christmas. So whatever you celebrate, have fun, be safe travels, and we'll see you on Friday.
Yeah, happy holidays, everyone. Thanks for hanging with us in the first unofficial half of the season. We'll be back on Friday. Good luck tonight out there.